Humans drew invisible lines and started killing each other over them. Those lines became countries. You cannot see them on the ground, rivers ignore them, animals cross them freely. But one step across the wrong line can turn you from a citizen into an intruder, an ally into an enemy, or a free person into a prisoner. For most of human history, these lines did not exist. There were no passports, national flags, border guards, or governments controlling millions of strangers. Then humans created a system that could claim land, collect taxes, command armies, and convince people to die for strangers living inside the same invisible boundary. So how did humans invent countries? And how did lines that exist only in our minds become powerful enough to control the world? Nobody sat down one morning and invented one. Countries appeared slowly, as humans solved one problem and accidentally created another. The story begins before cities, kings, or maps, when most people lived in small mobile groups. They knew every face around the fire. Leadership was often temporary. A skilled hunter might guide a hunt. An older person might settle an argument. But nobody controlled a permanent bureaucracy, a standing army, or a border stretching beyond sight. You followed people, not a government. Land mattered, but it was not divided into modern countries. Groups returned to hunting grounds, rivers, coastlines, and seasonal camps. They defended access when necessary, negotiated with neighbors, married into other groups, traded, separated, and joined again. Territory could overlap. Boundaries could move with weather, animals, and people. Then humans began staying in one place. Agriculture did not instantly create countries, but it changed the problem completely. A mobile hunter can leave when trouble arrives. A farmer cannot carry a field away. Crops take months to grow. Grain must be stored. Irrigation channels must be maintained. Houses, wells, animals, and planted land create things worth defending. The moment people invested years of labor into one place, leaving became expensive. And the moment food could be stored, controlling food became power. Imagine a village after harvest. Families have baskets of grain, but one flood, drought, fire, or raid could destroy everything. A shared storehouse offers protection. Everyone contributes. Food can be redistributed during shortage. Someone must measure what enters, guard it, decide what leaves, and remember who provided what. At first, that job looks like cooperation. Soon, it begins to look like government. The keeper of the storehouse knows who owes grain. The person organizing irrigation decides whose field receives water first. The group protecting the village controls weapons. Religious leaders explain why the harvest succeeded, why it failed, and which rituals might keep the gods favorable. Food, water, violence, and belief begin gathering around institutions instead of individual families. That is the foundation of a state, not a flag, not a national anthem. A system capable of organizing strangers, collecting resources, making rules, and enforcing decisions across a territory. The earliest clear examples developed in several parts of the world through different paths, but southern Mesopotamia gives us one of the best records. By around 3200 BCE, Uruk had become an urban center surrounded by smaller settlements. Tens of thousands of people lived among monumental buildings, workshops, temples, fields, canals, and markets. Most residents could not personally know everyone whose labor kept the city alive. That created a new problem. Trust no longer fit inside memory. A small group can remember who shared meat and who broke a promise. A city cannot run on personal memory alone. Officials needed to track barley, animals, land, workers, deliveries, debts, and rations. So they pressed information into clay. Some of the earliest writing from Uruk was not poetry, philosophy, or love letters, it was administration. Tablets recorded goods and the distribution of food to workers. Writing helped solve the problem created by scale. A ruler could forget, a tablet did not. Once information could survive outside the human brain, authority could reach farther. An official could count grain collected from people he had never met. A temple could manage workers across multiple settlements. A command could be copied, stored, and checked later. The state began to remember. But Uruk was not a modern country. It was closer to a city-state, a city, the farmland and villages around it, its institutions, its gods, and the people under its power. Nearby cities had their own rulers and identities. They traded, competed, formed alliances, stole water, fought over fields, and conquered one another. A person might belong politically to Uruk, Lagash, or another city, not to one unified nation called Mesopotamia. The first states were often small enough that the city stood at the center of everything. Its walls protected people. Its temples connected them to divine order. Its storehouses collected surplus. Its soldiers defended the fields. Its rulers claimed the right to command. This is where the line between contribution and taxation became thin. A community needs grain to feed workers repairing a canal. It needs supplies for guards and reserves for famine. But the same system can feed an elite finance conquest and punish anyone who refuses. The state was useful because it could coordinate many people. It was dangerous for exactly the same reason. No family could build a massive wall alone. No household could maintain an irrigation network stretching across fields. No individual could defend a city from an organized army. The state could, but once an institution can organize thousands of people to build a wall, it can organize those same people to attack the city beyond it. Countries did not grow only because humans wanted cooperation. They also grew because organized groups defeated less organized ones. War rewarded scale. A larger territory could produce more food, support more soldiers, and collect more tribute. Victorious rulers absorbed villages, captured labor, seized fields, and placed local communities beneath a wider authority. Egypt followed a different path. Communities along the Nile were connected by a river that acted like a long transport route through otherwise difficult landscapes. During the 4th millennium BCE, competing political centers controlled different parts of the valley and delta. By around 3100 BCE, these regions were brought under a kingship that presented Upper and Lower Egypt as one ordered realm. Now political authority stretched far beyond one city. A farmer could live days or weeks from the royal center and still owe grain, labor, or obedience to the same system. Officials, local administrators, religious institutions, transport networks, and records connected distant communities to the king, but it still was not a modern nation-state. Most ancient rulers did not claim that every person under them formed one equal national community. Kingdoms and empires contained different languages, religions, laws, and peoples. Loyalty might be owed to a ruler, dynasty, city, god, or local community rather than to an abstract nation. An empire did not need everyone to feel the same. It needed them to obey, pay, and avoid rebellion. That distinction matters because a state and a nation are not identical. A state is a political organization with authority over people and territory. A nation is a community whose members imagine themselves as belonging together through shared history, culture, language, ancestry, political ideals, or some combination of them. Ancient states existed. Even borders were different. Today, a border appears on a map as a precise line. Cross it by one step and you may enter another legal system. Ancient political boundaries were often less exact. A river, mountain, desert, fortress, or chain of settlements might mark a frontier, but control weakened with distance. The edge of a kingdom could be a zone rather than a line. A village might pay tribute to one ruler this year and another ruler after an army passed through. Pastoral groups moved across spaces that settled governments claimed but could not fully control. Two rulers could imagine authority over the same land. A border was wherever power could still reach. For most people, the country was not something viewed from above. It arrived as a tax collector, soldier, judge, road, wall, coin, official seal, or demand for labor. The state became real when it entered daily life. They standardized weights so goods could be measured. They issued coins. They built roads. They counted households. They registered land. They appointed officials, they wrote laws, they created permanent armies and courts. Each system allowed authority to operate across greater distance. A kingdom no longer depended entirely on the ruler being physically present. The ruler could appear through documents, taxes, uniforms, messengers, and people authorized to act in the ruler's name. A king can die. An institution can replace him. But the modern country required another transformation: sovereignty. In medieval Europe, political authority often overlapped. A person could owe obligations to a local lord, a king, a city, a church, and an empire at the same time. Control was layered rather than cleanly divided into separate boxes. Over the early modern period, rulers centralized taxation, law, diplomacy, and military power. Political thinkers developed the idea that one supreme authority should govern within a territory, while other rulers should not command inside it. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 is often presented as the moment the modern state system was born. The truth is slower. The treaties did not suddenly invent countries, and scholars debate how revolutionary they were, but they became part of a long movement toward a world organized around territorial states claiming sovereignty. Still, these states were often kingdoms belonging to dynasties. People were subjects of rulers. They were not yet citizens of nations. Then printing, mass literacy, schools, newspapers, industrialization, and political revolution changed what belonging could mean. People who would never meet could read the same language, learn the same history, follow the same events, and imagine themselves as members of one community. The French Revolution pushed a dangerous new idea into the center of politics. The country did not belong only to the king. It belonged to the nation. If political authority came from the nation, governments could demand loyalty not merely to a ruler, but to a people. Citizens could be asked to vote, pay taxes, attend school, serve in mass armies, and die for a homeland presented as their collective possession. flags, anthems, national holidays, censuses, standardized languages, school books, maps, monuments, and shared enemies helped turn millions of strangers into one imagined we. Countries became emotional. Then governments learned to make belonging measurable. A census counted who lived inside the territory. A map fixed the edge. Birth records connected a person to a place. Identity papers decided who could travel, own land, vote, serve, or receive protection. Schools taught children the same language and historical story. Conscription placed strangers in uniforms and trained them to obey one command. These tools did not merely describe a country, they produced one. A remote village might speak differently, follow local customs, and feel little connection to the capital. But roads brought officials. Schools brought national history, courts brought law, military service mixed people from distant regions, newspapers allowed them to imagine the same crisis at the same time. The country entered the village until the village entered the country. This process was never complete. Local identities survived. People could feel attached to a town, religion, language, tribe, region, and state at once. But governments became unusually powerful because they could classify people, educate them, move them, tax them, and speak to them as members of one population. The story said that this land was our homeland, these ancestors were our ancestors, this history was our history, and the line on the map separated us from them. Sometimes that story united communities that wanted self-government. Sometimes it erased minorities, forced languages to disappear, justified conquest, or turned neighbors into outsiders. The invention solved one problem and created another. A large state needs strangers to cooperate. National identity gives them a reason. But the stronger the category of us becomes, the easier it can be to fear, exclude, or attack them. By the 19th and 20th centuries, the nation-state had become the dominant political ideal, even when reality never matched it perfectly. Many countries contained several nations. Many nations remained divided across multiple states. Empires collapsed, colonies became independent, borders were redrawn, and new governments claimed to represent distinct peoples. But no two were invented in exactly the same way. Some grew from ancient kingdoms, some formed through revolution. Some united smaller states. Some broke away from empires. Some were shaped by colonial borders drawn with little regard for the communities living inside them. Some still dispute where their territory ends or who belongs to the nation. A country is therefore not one invention. It is several inventions stacked together. Agriculture created fixed resources. Storage created surplus. Surplus created administration. Administration created records. Records made taxation possible across distance. Taxes supported officials, walls, roads, and armies. Armies expanded territory. Law made authority repeatable. Sovereignty turned overlapping power into territorial claims. Printing and education created shared identity among strangers. Nationalism joined that identity to the state. Maps made borders look natural. Documents made citizenship portable, and generations born inside the system forgot how strange the original idea was. Look at a modern border from space. There is usually no line. The soil does not change color. The animals do not carry passports. The river may cross it without permission. Yet the invisible boundary can change the laws you follow, the language used by officials, the money in your pocket, the army that claims your service, and the identity written beside your name. The line is imaginary. Its consequences are not. That is the real answer to how humans invented countries. We did not discover them in the landscape. We built institutions powerful enough to control land and people, then created stories strong enough to make millions believe they belonged inside the same boundary. The first states organized grain, water, labor, religion, and violence. Later kingdoms organized larger territories. Modern governments organized law, bureaucracy, and sovereignty. Nations organized memory and identity. Put them together, and you get the country. An invisible agreement backed by records, roads, schools, taxes, courts, symbols, and force. It can build hospitals, protect rights, coordinate disaster relief, and allow strangers to cooperate on a scale no village could manage. It can also imprison, conquer, exclude, and demand sacrifice. The same machine can protect people or crush them, because the machine itself has no conscience. Only the people controlling it do. For most of human history, nobody had a country. They had families, camps, villages, cities, rulers, gods, and lands they knew. Then the groups became too large for everyone to know everyone else. So humans invented systems to make strangers cooperate. They counted grain, they recorded names, they raised walls, they collected taxes, they drew borders. And finally, they taught people to look at an invisible line and see home. Countries were never found. They were imagined, administered, defended, and made real.